Welcome to a new episode from Perfect English Podcast. Today we're going to learn some idioms that we can use to talk about having problems or to express different kinds of problems we might have. Before we start, let me tell you that I have left a link in the episode description that will take you to a quiz you can take after listening to this episode to check your understanding of the idioms we're going to talk about. But now, without further ado, let's get to it and let's start talking about these idioms we can use to express our situation when we have problems. Now, the first idiom we're going to talk about is come up against a brick wall. So it is come up against a brick wall. We say, I've come up against a brick wall. And what does that mean? That means something is blocking me from doing what I want to do. For example, we can say, I was tired. I had been working real hard for a long time, and I felt that I'd come up against a brick wall. I arrived at a situation in which something is stopping me from doing what I want and preventing me from making any progress. That is the meaning of come up against a brick wall. Now, of course, we don't say it split like that. We say come up against a brick wall. We say it connected. And now let's move to the next idiom, and that is put my foot in it. You need to know that we can say put my foot, put his foot, put your foot. My is variable. You can change it if you want. But the idea is put your, my, etc. foot in it. And this idiom is used to talk about something you say that is tactless and embarrassing. Now, if someone puts their foot in it or puts their foot in their mouth, they accidentally do or say something which embarrasses or offends people. For example, our chairman has really put his foot in it. Poor man, though he doesn't know it. He said something embarrassing, and usually it's not intentional. So sometimes it happens, you put your foot in it, you say things, you do things that embarrass you or embarrass other people. You do that unintentionally, but it happens. So that is the second idiom we learned today. Put your foot in it, or put my foot in it. And now let's move to the third idiom of the day, and that is in dire straits. When I say I'm in dire straits. Now that idiom is mostly British, and to be in dire straits means to be in a position of acute difficulty, of a lot of difficulty. A very difficult and sometimes dangerous situation. For example, the company's closure has left many small business owners in desperate financial straits. Or we can say, if we had a child, we'd be in really dire straits. So as you noticed, we can say dire straits or desperate straits as well. So the idiom again, I'm in dire straits or I'm in desperate straits, and that means in a very difficult or even dangerous situation. And now to the next idiom, I've dug myself into a hole. I've dug myself into a hole. To dig yourself into a hole. Now when I say I've dug myself into a hole, that means I have myself caused a problem that will be difficult to escape from. Now, sometimes we even use it only in a hole. We say, I'm in a hole. And if you say that you are in a hole, you mean that you are in a difficult or embarrassing situation. For example, he admitted that the government was in a dreadful hole, or simply in a hole. Okay, so again, I've dug myself into a hole means that I have myself caused a problem that will be difficult to escape from. And now let's move to the next idiom. I've spread myself too thin. I've spread myself too thin. What does that mean? If you spread yourself too thin, you try to do a lot of different things at the same time with the result that you cannot do any of them properly. And that happens to a lot of us all the time. We try to do too much in the limited time we have, and we end up doing nothing, or we do all of these things but not properly, not as properly as we want them to be. For example, The company grew too fast and spread itself too thin across too many diverse areas. So that can happen to companies as well. It's not for individuals only. So remember, when I say I've spread myself too thin, that means I'm trying to do too many things at the same time, with the result that I can't give any of them the attention they need, and I can't achieve proper results with any of them. And now let's move to the next idiom. I've been left holding the baby. What does it mean? I've been left holding the baby. Now, if you are left holding the baby, you are put in a situation where you are responsible for something, often in an unfair way, because other people fail or refuse to take responsibility for it. For example, you go off round the world and leave me to hold the baby. That could be a wife telling her husband about the responsibilities he leaves her while he travels all over the world, doing business or doing whatever, but the idea is that is unfair. We use left holding the baby to talk about the situation when other people do not accept responsibility and they leave it all up to you, and it is not fair because it shouldn't be your own responsibility. And now let's move to the next idiom, and that is over a barrel. Over a barrel, we can use it like they've got me over a barrel. And if we say they've got me over a barrel, it means that they have put me in a situation where I have no choice over what I can do. They leave me powerless. I can't do anything about it because I don't have the power to change or choose. So that is, they've got me over a barrel. And now for the next idiom, and that is a stumbling block. You can say, for example, I've come up against a stumbling block. What does a stumbling block mean? Now, a stumbling block is a problem which stops you from achieving something. For example, we say his lack of speed is a major stumbling block to a premiership return. So remember, I've come up against a stumbling block, and that is a problem which stops me from achieving something. And now for the next idiom, and that is clutching at straws. Now, what does it mean to clutch at straws? If you clutch at straws, you rely on ideas, hopes, or methods which are unlikely to be successful because you are desperate and cannot think of anything else to try. For example, this extraordinary speech was made by a man clutching at straws to gain much desired publicity. So, if you say, I'm clutching at straws now, that means I am in such a difficult situation that I will try anything because I am desperate. I need a solution. I may try anything. And now for the next idiom, I've drawn a blank. What is the meaning of draw a blank? Now, when you draw a blank, you are simply unsuccessful in an attempt to do something, to find information, to achieve something that you hope for, but you are unable to do it. You are unsuccessful. You draw a blank. For example, we can say, I searched among the bottles and under the behind and inside everything I could think of and drew a blank. What does that mean? I was not able to find what I wanted to find. I was unsuccessful. And now for the next idiom, face the music. Now, if you face the music, you put yourself in a position where you will be criticized or punished for something you have done. So here we're talking about something you deserve. It is a problem, obviously, but it is a problem that you deserve. Not like when we say left holding the baby, you were left with responsibility for something in an unfair way. When you face the music, it is fair because you accept criticism or punishment for what you have done. For example, we can say sooner or later, I'm going to have to face the music. I know what I've done, and I know that someday I will be punished for it, or at least criticized for it. So I'm saying I have to face the music. And now we have two more idioms to go. The first one is fact of life. For example, we say taxes are unfortunately a fact of life. What does that mean, a fact of life? That means an unpleasant situation which has to be accepted because it cannot be changed. You say that something which is not pleasant is a fact of life when there is nothing you can do to change it, so you must accept it. Another example, we can say, stress is a fact of life from time to time for all of us. This is something we cannot escape. It will happen to us from time to time. Hopefully not most of the time, but it is a fact of life. It will happen. But pay attention, a fact of life must not be confused with the phrase the facts of life, which is slightly indirect or humorous way of referring to information about sexual reproduction. So pay attention. Don't use it in this way. It means something completely different. Our idiom again is a fact of life. Taxes are a fact of life. Stress is a fact of life. Remember, don't say the facts of life, okay? And now for the last idiom for today, and that is easier said than done. Now, if you say that something is easier said than done, you are emphasizing that although it sounds like a good idea in theory, you think it would be difficult to actually do it. For example, avoiding mosquito bites is easier said than done. So yeah, it's easy to talk about it and think about it, and in theory it should be possible. But in reality, if you are in a place with a lot of mosquitoes, you will be bitten. It's not easy to avoid it. Another example, one person says to another, "Why don't you take the train to work? Then you would avoid all the traffic jams." And the person responds, "Easier said than done. There are no trains at the right time." So here, easier said than done, again talks about something you say when something seems like a good idea, but is difficult to actually do. So these were all the idioms I wanted to share with you that express the idea of having problems. We talked about different idioms that mean different kinds of problems you might have in your everyday life. They're very useful, they're common, they are used. They're not those idioms that nobody uses, or they're very regional where they're used in only one place and not the other. And now, before I leave, don't forget to take the quiz and check your understanding of the idioms we talked about today. This is your host, Danny, saying thank you very much for listening to another episode from Perfect English Podcast. I will see you tomorrow in a new episode. Thank you very much.